Sean, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's day 3 of North Central NATO, North American Association of Theater Owners events. Last day, we're here at a fantastic facility, Fridley facility. It's their Palms with the IMAX. So looking forward to seeing the facility and how they run their operation.
Absolutely. I think right now, while we're sitting here making this video, they're going through and doing a tour of the facility right now. And then actually we're ramping up to be on the artificial intelligence panel talking about the impact of AI on the cinema and theater industry. So I'm pretty excited to sit on the panel about that. And you're going to be in the audience.
Yeah, I'm gonna be learning as well, because especially you and I coming from the tech background. There's a lot of AI and tech, but how can these theaters use that data that they can get from artificial intelligence to learn and grow as a business? Because honestly, the theater industry is obviously, since the pandemic, they've struggled. How can they continue to evolve and grow their business? And I think artificial intelligence done the right way might impact that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And hopefully, if I have the chance on the panel, I think hopefully one of the other things to kind of bring to the forefront is it's really about extracting the business value from implementing new or any new or emerging technology. If the impact of that technology doesn't actually serve the business, then what's the real value of doing that? Otherwise, besides having cool tech.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's all about ROI for these facilities. How do they make money? Continue to make money in an industry that seems to be very, very dispersed. It's you've got streaming, you've got all these other things, and how do they continue, to pour people into a fantastic place like this?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, one of the things hopefully I'll have a chance to talk about during the panel is, almost putting on my product manager hat, where if whatever you're thinking about implementing technology-wise doesn't kind of meet these 3 core pillars of product management, is it feasible, as in if you can do it? Is it viable? Can you make money off of it? And is it desirable, as in do you want to do it and do your patrons want it? And again, what's the real story behind all this? Are you doing it just because it's something cool to do and it's new? Or are you doing it because you really do think there's going to be something valuable that helps you either make more money, reduce your cost, or optimize your spend?
Yeah, you coming from the tech side, and I think the 2 gentlemen are with you are from a local university, and how they're actually teaching that within the university, and how they're actually educating people on the uses and how these young entrepreneurs or young business people coming out can impact a company like this, a local company in their market, no matter where they are and what they're doing. We just happen to be here at a theater industry event.
Yeah, so anyways, that's what we're going to be doing upcoming in a few minutes. Just stepping back from that while we're waiting for doors to open, what were your impressions of the NATO conference overall? You've been here for 3 days now. So what were your impressions of the folks you met, the independent theaters, some who are working out of historical buildings that are one screens? Like, what's been your impression of the show?
Really cool, really diverse community, but very well connected. That's the one thing, first event here for a NATO for us, but really open to new ideas. We were very busy. I think we got a great value out of this event, but we also learned a lot to where how these people are trying to change their business, what they're doing, the different adaptations that they're doing, and learning from the other vendors. There's a lot of different types of vendors. People I had no idea would be at this type of event. So really fun. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, same here. I think one of my big takeaways, again, I agree 100% with your point around this was very much a learning event, but at the same point, just looking at the challenges that smaller theater owners have. When you're working out of a historical building, you're going through constant renovations to keep the building up to code, making sure it's working okay, and then also the revenue challenges, right? The fact that there's such tight margins, but you're completely passionate about having this cinematic experience offered to your patrons. Like that balance, that tug and pull, or that push and pull of how to operate in those circumstances, is very interesting to hear people's stories.
Yeah, and I really like hearing about people, utilizing these older buildings, repurposing them or bringing them back to life. I think that's really cool. It goes to their local heritage. Maybe they're local for that market. We talked to a gentleman the other day who actually grew up. He worked at a concession stand like what's behind us, and he just loved it so much that here he is. He's in the process of acquiring a building, starting a new theater, and looking to do that. And that's a challenge, but I applaud him for doing it. So to me, it shows hope that this industry is still has the ability to grow and adapt.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, it looks like our panel's about to get started, so we're going to go in there, and hopefully Sean's going to get good footage of everything there, and we will see you all later. If you want to learn more about what we're doing at Times and Titles, please go to timesandtitles.com and look for us on social. We'll be posting a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn. So anyways, cheers, everybody. Appreciate you sticking with us for a little bit. Hi, my name's Paul Curtis. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and Director of Product Development for Times and Titles. So wonderful to be here with y'all. Glad to see some familiar faces. Actually, my first time at the NC NATO conference, so really cool. I think one of the things that I'm really happy to be here about, one, to talk about AI in general and specifically generative AI, but I've also had a long background as a specialist in the research and development space, technology-wise. Having done multiple technology startups, I've been a business and technology consultant for global software organizations. And one of the things that I like to say I bring that experience into what we do at Times and Titles is helping our clients and our customers navigate the hype cycles of new and emerging technologies, right? So you've heard about a bunch of amazing capability today, but I think hopefully one of the outcomes of you all listening to this panel is really getting a better idea of how do you actually extract business value from what the capability of AI brings. I think that's one of the most fundamental things you can take away from this. There's a lot of good tools. There's a lot you can do, kind of independently on your own. But between Chris and Chris, what they talked about before, you have to put the work in to do this. And so the question is, as you're thinking about those trade-offs of are you going to build, are you going to buy, are you going to outsource? How do you make sure you have a strategy going into doing those things so that potentially investments you make ultimately yield the business value that will actually help you increase your bottom line, potentially save money if that's one of your objectives, optimize the cost of or optimize the spend of what you're spending now. So really happy to be here with you all, and I'm looking forward to jumping in the panel.
I really didn't prepare these guys at all for it, because I want to see where this goes. And I literally gave them one question, right? So Paul, you were already talking, you've got the mic, but how do you see AI from your perspective impacting the movie theater industry? I mean, super broad question, but I'm curious from your perspective.
Yeah, very much a broad question. I think that's actually part of the beauty of it, right? I think, and this has just been my experience, I'd like to say, I'm an insider now, but definitely with an outsider perspective, that when you're talking about any new and emerging technology, the use cases or the way that businesses are ultimately going to use that technology is so very dependent on the individual needs of that business or organization. And so kind of if you're thinking about adopting AI or using generative AI in any way, you absolutely need to be mindful of what specific thing about that capability that generative AI offers is going to be used and useful in the context of how you operate your business. You need to be very focused and very specific. You need to define the business outcomes that are important to you, whether that's revenue growth, whether that is in bettering the customer experience. You need to be very specific about those goals. And if you're listening to what I'm saying, what I'm talking about here is business strategy. I'm not talking about how to specifically use one individual tool or technology. You need to be mindful of your strategy, your business strategy going in. And I would say don't make the mistakes of other clients and customers I've worked with where essentially you're raising your level of activity, effort, et cetera, to meet the new technology where it is. Think about it in the inverse way, right? You want AI or generative AI, your use cases, to meet you where you are. Right? You control the destiny of your business. You control how you interact with the market. So don't let the drive or the hype cycle, the need to feel like you need to gravitate toward or adapt your business to use a new technology divert you ultimately from the business outcome that you desire and that you've been working toward. AI in this case is a tool to assist you. It's assistive technology in a way. It shouldn't be the thing that redefines your business. All right, I love that question because it's multi-layered. Whether it's realized or not, there's a lot of layers to that question. So the first thing I would say, you already obviously know what HR platform you're using. So if it's like a Workday, if it's a SAP or something like that, I agree with Chris's point, right? See who the leaders are, or the thought leaders in those specific platforms. But also, if you have an account rep with like Workday, for instance, you should be able to call them and ask them and say, hey, we are considering use of generative AI. Who do you work with? Do you work with ChatGPT? Do you work with Google? So do you have Gemini plugins, etc.? That's usually the best first place to start because at least that gets you to a yes or no. There's an easy button for this. Like this is already worked out and my organization approves of this integration, even if it's in like a test environment or a sandbox. So that's a really good way to get started. This is why I say there's layers to it. The second reason is because one of the things that I really love about generative AI, like the technology specifically, is it does something that humans are very bad at doing, which is it wonderfully, many times, summarizes large volumes of data such that humans can understand it. To me, that's the big value of Gen AI, is the fact that you can take mountains of historical data, old policies that have been written in an HR context, little notes that people, former HR administrators have been taking for years, but haven't made their way in a system. They're in a shoebox somewhere in a desk that's been occupied by 27 different people, right? That massive body of data, when managed appropriately and a cohesive data strategy around that, really opens up the door for internal use cases for Gen AI when you're looking at organizational specific platforms that can then be better enabled by the use of Gen AI for essentially finding the information you're looking for and creating the documents, policy, etc., that will actually be useful for your organization, get you to about the 80% mark of saying, all right, this is much better than what we had before. And for the 20%, as Rob was talking about, allowing for the human involved to optimize their time and saying, okay, we have to review this, we have to validate it, check for correctness. And you saved such a huge amount of time, but have really extracted valuable business value from the use of that technology in a way that's repeatable, in a way that actually provides immediate value versus something long down the road that you may or may not realize while you're still at the company, and also gives you supportive use cases so that if Gen AI is useful in the context of your organization, now you actually have a win on the board, right, for your executive leadership to say, oh, okay, we actually used it and it was useful. All right, well, let's explore these other areas. Let's iterate, let's experiment with how this could be useful going forward. So that's why I said there's layers. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
So just to add, because Paul and I come from the data and analytics and technology, where would a place be for the leaders to go to be able to read the data? Because as you know, I know, there's a lot of data. If they don't have the staff to read the data, it might just be a wasted effort. Where would be a place maybe one of you guys would recommend, or somebody they could work with to understand the data they're getting?
Oh, yeah, I get what you're talking about. So,
go ahead.
All right, cool. That works. Okay, so I think what Sean is saying over there is he's asking about if an organization, if a theater has a lot of data that they want to be evaluated, I guess, by Gen AI and have a use case that supports the use of that data for whatever the reason. Where do you go find that data? And if you don't know where to go find the data, who do you engage to help you find the data? So one, I would say, as far as data creation is concerned, for most companies, organizations, you probably need to start with your IT folk, right? And say, okay, where's everything being stored? Are we using like Google Workspaces? Are we using Office 365? Where does that data reside? Do we need to talk to our POS vendors, right? Maybe they're the repository for data that we need to plug into or learn more about and find out what kind of data exists there, because then once we know the type of data that exists there, we kind of know what we can do with that data, how we can use it once we know what kind of data we have. Hopefully that answers the first part of your question. Okay. The second part, if you don't know that information, who should you be working with? And I think that's a great question. So one, of course, if you have embedded vendors, I like how Russ calls it like vendor friends, right? If you have embedded vendors you're working with, they're a good place to start. If, on the other hand, you need to or have previously engaged like a consultancy, like whatever regional vendor, national vendor, whatever that may be, right? What your consultancy of choice. If you've worked with somebody like that before, then most of them usually have specialized groups that specialize in this area of data management, data strategy, how to use that with AI in general, how to use that specifically with generative AI. And so it's a kind of a soft, fuzzy answer. But the one thing I will say about if you're looking for like consulting partners to help you with this, a couple of key things you really want to pay attention to. The first is if you have a use case around data such that you want it to be, that's one of the catalysts for you using generative AI or AI in general, you want to work with a consulting partner that has actually done this before. Remember what I was talking before about the hype cycle? Well, you know, it's a hype cycle, and so everybody out there who wants to make money assisting organizations and companies like your own says that they do this, and they've been doing it for 20 years, and this only really came to the market 2 years ago, right? So that's, you know, I had to say it. Working for a former consultancy, right? We're revealing secrets today. Yeah, work with somebody who's actually done this before. Work with somebody that actually speaks to your level of understanding. So the last thing you want is working with a consultancy that's, you know, telling you, you know, how bits move across the wire, and you're like, hey, I just need to find this one document that had our historical data in it. If that's not the level they're talking to you, then that's probably not the right folk to talk to, all right? The last thing I'll say, and this is, again, more along the lines of people or organizations, consultancies that have done this before, if you're looking for help, you know, check with your peers, find out who's used what, who's highly recommended, because again, in this space, I talked before about new and emerging technologies. This space is still new enough where there's lots of people doing amazing things and learning how to help people, but at the same token, it's new enough where anybody who says they have all the answers is lying to you. I will say that with confidence. If they say they have all the answers, run. They're lying to you. All right, so I'll leave it like that. Hopefully, Sean, does that answer the second part of your question? Cool.